The desert winds howled like ancient spirits trapped between dimensions, scouring the jagged cliffs of planet Kylora. A storm was coming, but that wasn't what made Dax Roan slam his boots into the dust and yank his visor down tighter. It was the weak ping from a damaged beacon, blinking red in a place no one should have survived. He had no orders to investigate. He should have been halfway across the Arctic's rift by now. But something about the signal, it wasn't just distress. It pulsed with desperation. Broken. Abandoned. Like a final breath trapped in metal. He locked his pulse rifle, scanned the surroundings, and moved fast. The rocky terrain didn't bother him, he'd survived war zones worse than this. What stopped him dead in his tracks was the figure slumped beside a scorched boulder. She wasn't human. But she was bleeding like one. Long golden hair, tangled and dust-streaked, clung to her shoulders. Her gown, once royal and luminous, was ripped, charred at the hem. The faint glow around her ears gave away her lineage, Celeran nobility. Probably a rebel. He crouched cautiously. "Hey. You conscious?" Her eyes fluttered open, violet, sharp, and furious. Even now, near death, she looked like she might spit fire. "Don't touch me," she growled. Dax chuckled despite the danger. "Well, nice to meet you too, Your Highness." He unpacked a med spray and reached toward her wound. She swatted at him, weakly. He caught her wrist gently. "I'm not here to finish what your enemies started," he said. "I'm human. And I don't leave people behind." Her glare faded a fraction. Maybe it was the pain, or the sincerity in his voice. But she didn't fight when he patched her up. "What's your name?" he asked, setting up a thermal shield against the brewing storm. She looked away. "Aeris. Aeris. Of course." The rebel princess who'd defied her own empire, led a planetary uprising, then vanished during the orbital siege. Last anyone heard, she'd stolen a dropship and fled into the dunes. They said she died out there, betrayed by her own. "I thought you were dead," he muttered. She laughed, bitter and dry. "I was supposed to be." That night, they huddled under the portable dome. The sandstorm screamed, but inside, it was just him and her. Two enemies. Two survivors. "You don't know what they did to me," she whispered. Dax didn't press. Trauma had its own clock. Instead, he handed her a hydration vial. She took it, her fingers brushing his. When morning came, the storm had passed, but so had any chance of immediate rescue. The signal beacon was fried. No way to call for help. And Aeris couldn't walk on her own. "We'll have to head north," Dax said. "There's an outpost. 3 days' walk." She blinked. "You'll carry me? I've done worse things for less important people." She didn't smile, but her gaze softened. Each step through that infernal desert tested Dax's resolve. Aeris, despite her condition, kept offering intel about mines, patrols, and safe zones like a soldier, not royalty. She was sharp. Strategic. A firebrand, even while half dead. "Why'd they abandon you?" he asked one night as they rested beneath an overhang. She hesitated. "Then, because I refused to burn innocent colonies. My generals saw it as weakness." He stared at her, silent. "You ever shoot a man who didn't deserve it?" she asked. He nodded. "Too many times." She leaned back, eyes closed. "Then maybe we're not so different." By the second night, something had changed. The space between them didn't feel like enemy lines anymore. It felt like something sacred, like understanding. Like the universe had stopped trying to crush them and started listening. When they reached the canyon's edge, a drone spotted them. Not a good one. Aeris's breath hitched. "Celeran scout. They'll kill you for helping me." Dax didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and took the drone out with a single shot. Aeris stared at him like he'd just rewritten the laws of the galaxy. "You're not like the others." "Neither are you." That night, with a fire flickering between them, she finally told him everything. How her father had promised peace but secretly funded the extermination of dissenting worlds. How she tried to stop him and was branded a traitor. How her most loyal guards turned their weapons on her. "They didn't just want me gone," she said. "They wanted me erased." He reached across the fire and took her hand. You're not erased. You're right here. And as long as I'm breathing, no one's erasing you again. She looked at him, something raw flickering behind her eyes. Not fear. Not pain. Hope. And that was more dangerous than any empire. Aeris sat upright now, her back against the cold canyon rock. The heat of the desert had faded into a chilling dusk, and the fire Dax built crackled softly between them. She no longer looked like a ghost. Her strength was returning, and with it, the steel edge in her voice. We can't go to the outpost, she said. Dax looked up from checking his rifle's charge. Why not? They've compromised it. I remembered last night I got intercepted by my father's elite squad just south of that location. The commander bragged about it before they left me to die. He paused. The plan had changed. Again. And he could see how much it cost her to admit it. So what's the new play? There's an old rebel cache hidden in the cave systems east of here. If it's still intact, we'll find weapons, supplies, maybe even a comm rig strong enough to punch through Sealeran jammers. Dax nodded. Lead the way, princess. Don't call me that, she snapped, then softened. Just Aeris. They set off at dawn. The canyon paths twisted like the ribcage of a long-dead giant, each turn a potential ambush. Aeris walked now, leaning on a makeshift cane Dax had carved. Her limp slowed them, but her instincts were razor-sharp. She remembered hidden sentry drones before they triggered. She spotted the shimmer of camo mines under rock shadows. It was like she'd memorized the terrain with her blood. How did you learn all this? He asked as they rested in a jagged alcove. War doesn't care about royalty, she replied. My father's council thought I'd be a puppet. They didn't expect me to fight. I didn't expect to survive. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as a soldier. Not as a fugitive. But as someone who'd clawed her way back from death with nothing but rage and purpose. They underestimated you, he said. Everyone does. They reached the cave entrance by nightfall. It was sealed tight, hidden behind ancient rock patterns and a fingerprint-locked panel. Aeris approached it with reverence. It was built by the first rebel engineers. My mother helped design it. Before she was executed. Dax placed a hand on her shoulder. You ready? She didn't answer. Just pressed her palm to the scanner. The rock groaned, and the panel slid open with a hiss. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered to life, revealing a hollowed-out fortress beneath the surface. Tech stations, weapon racks, power conduits, dusty, but functional. Aeris moved like she was home. Dax stayed alert. This place is a miracle. It's a graveyard. She walked past the remains of old banners, their symbols faded but not forgotten. Dax followed until they reached the central console. Help me power it up, she said. Together they rewired ancient circuits, replaced failed cells, and booted the mainframe. The interface stuttered, then surged with light. Aeris typed commands like second nature. Data poured in encrypted reports, intercepted transmissions, troop movements. But one file froze her breath. What is it? Dax asked. My father. He's planning a planetary cleanse of Sealeran dissenters. Tomorrow. Using the orbital prism array. Dax's blood went cold. That'll kill millions. And erase any chance of rebellion. I have to stop it. He stepped closer. We'll stop it. Her eyes welled, but she blinked it away. We need to broadcast a counter-command from the original throne relay. It overrides prism targeting, but it's in the capital citadel. Fortified. Like a goddamn hive. They stood in silence. Then Dax pulled a dusty crate from a supply rack and popped the lid. Inside, 2 exosuits. One sized for a soldier. One clearly custom-made. Guess we crash a royal palace, he said. She smirked. You in? I didn't hike through hell just to watch the galaxy burn. They spent the night preparing. Aeris recalibrated her suit, built for speed and neural syncing. Dax armed up, compact fusion grenades, a reinforced pulse rifle, stealth nets. Before they left, Aeris paused at the console and uploaded a backup of the relay override to a data chip. Just in case, she said. Backup plans. I like that. They exited the cave at dawn, disguised in cloaks to avoid aerial scans. The capital was a 4-hour march away. As they walked, Aeris asked the question that had lingered since the canyon. Why are you really helping me? Dax didn't answer right away. Then, because the universe needs people who still give a damn. You gave a damn, even when it cost you everything. That matters. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. But her hand brushed his as they walked. No words. But everything changed in that moment. At midday, the citadel rose from the horizon like a scar across the land, towers of chrome and stone, spires piercing the clouds. Drones buzzed overhead. Guard patrols glimmered at the gates. We go in quiet, Aeris said. Through the aqueduct tunnels. They found the grate exactly where she remembered. Crawled through tight, grimy shafts, dodged security sensors. It was like slipping through the veins of a sleeping beast. Inside the citadel's lower level, alarms briefly flared, then died. Aeris's override codes still worked. Barely. We've got maybe 10 minutes before someone notices, she warned. They sprinted through shadowed corridors, up concealed stairs, and into the tower core. The throne relay shimmered in a crystalline chamber. One wrong move, and auto-turrets would shred them. Dax scanned for tripwires. I got this. He disabled the security grid with seconds to spare. Aeris approached the relay and slotted in the data chip. A surge of energy rippled across the room. The command override lit up. She typed. Confirmed. Transmission sent. And then an explosion rocked the tower. They're here, Dax growled, rifle up. Dozens of royal guards poured in. Dax fired, shielding Aeris as she covered the relay. She shot like a storm, fast, precise, unyielding. But there were too many. They were pinned. Fall back. Dax shouted. No. If I leave now, they'll just undo it. I won't let you die here. She looked at him, the fire of rebellion burning in her eyes. Then stand with me. He did. Side by side. As enemies turned allies faced the storm together. Smoke curled from the shattered throne room. Cracks laced the polished walls where energy blasts had scarred the stone. Dax's shoulder armor was blackened from an explosion, and Aeris had a deep gash along her thigh, but they were alive. And more importantly, the override signal had been sent. But it wasn't over. We can't hold them much longer, Dax said, dragging a shield generator toward the door and locking it in place. We need an exit. Aeris limped over, accessing the throne's embedded control panel. There's a launch hangar below us. If we can reach it, I can fly us out. You can fly. I'm not just a princess, remember, she said, wincing through a small grin. Outside the chamber, the sound of boots echoed. Dozens of soldiers were regrouping, coordinating. The enemy had realized what was at stake. Go, Dax barked. I'll hold them. Like hell you will. She grabbed his arm. For a second, they stared at each other through the haze, blood, sweat, soot bound by something stronger than war. Together they bolted through a side corridor, ducking as plasma fire scorched the air. Aeris dropped a pulse mine behind them. The explosion shook the walls, giving them a 10-second lead. The hangar wasn't far, but getting there meant cutting through the citadel's inner sanctum. Royal banners hung from the ceilings. Elite guards waited in every hall. They fought like cornered wolves. Dax moved with precision, covering Aeris as she darted forward, laying down suppression bursts and slicing through security locks. At one point, they got separated in a cloud of smoke. 4-3 heartbeats, Dax thought he'd lost her until she emerged through the haze, firing with a cry of defiance. When they reached the hangar, an old Celeran fighter sat in the docking clamps, half covered in tarps. She'll fly, Aeris said, racing toward it. She better. They clambered in. Dax took rear gunner. Aeris slid into the pilot's cradle, fingers dancing over the controls like she was born there. The engine rumbled to life just as the bay doors blasted open. Enemy reinforcements poured in. Dax unleashed the turret, spraying the incoming forces with fire. Aeris punched the thrusters, tearing the ship from its moorings. The hangar bay roof cracked open, revealing a sky smeared in red. Then they were airborne, dodging flak and plasma, weaving through towers and drone fire. But one shot clipped them. The ship shuddered. Warning lights flared. "We're leaking core coolant," Aeris yelled. "Can we make it to the outer atmosphere?" "No. But I know where we can land." She veered sharply, heading for the eastern ridge. Dax recognized it, old rebel territory, long abandoned. They crash-landed hard, the ship grinding across rock and sand, finally skidding to a stop near a crater. Silence. Aeris coughed, blood on her lip. "Still alive?" "Barely." Dax pulled her from the wreckage. No time to rest. Royal scouts would follow the crash trail. They had maybe minutes. They stumbled into the ruins of an old rebel command post. The place was barely standing, cracked walls, moss-eaten tech, but it had power. Enough for one last move. "I can rebroadcast the override signal from here," Aeris said, setting up the transmitter. "Reinforce it. Make sure it sticks." Dax stood by the window, rifle ready. He saw movement in the hills. Scouts. Fast. "Do it. I'll buy you time." She didn't argue. The signal flared again, stronger this time. Aeris poured everything into it, her last card, her legacy. As the final pulse transmitted, she turned to Dax. "They'll be here in seconds." "I know." He raised his rifle. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "Good. Because I've got one more trick." He reached into his belt and tossed her a beacon. "Alliance extraction signal. Activated it an hour ago. They'll be locking onto us right about." A low hum grew above the crater. Gunships. Alliance gunships. Lasers rained down from the sky, striking the royal squads with precision. The hillside lit up in orange flame. Dax shielded Aeris as the wind whipped around them. When the dust cleared, a squad of armored humans descended. One of them saluted. "Commander Roan." "We got your ping." Dax nodded. "Package secured. Let's move." As medics rushed to treat Aeris, she looked up at him. "You called them?" "I figured if we were going to rewrite history, we'd need backup." She smiled, a real one this time. "You just saved millions of lives." "You started it," he said. They lifted off into the night sky, leaving the wreckage behind. But something had changed, not just the course of war, but the bond between two enemies who had found something rare in the galaxy. Trust. And the beginning of something far bigger than either of them had imagined. The Alliance gunship hovered in silence over the green-blue swirl of Kylora, its engines purring like a beast tamed. Inside, Aeris sat wrapped in a recovery cloak, her gaze fixed on the planet below. Her wounds were healing, but the deeper ones, betrayal, loss, exile, those took longer. Dax stood nearby, leaning against the bulkhead. He hadn't taken his eyes off her since they boarded. Not because she needed watching. Because he wasn't ready to look away. "They're waiting," he said. Aeris glanced toward the rear of the ship, where a group of Alliance generals, politicians, and rebel leaders stood assembled, ready to decide what came next. "Let them wait," she said. He smiled. "You sure you're ready for this?" "No," she took a deep breath. "But I'm going anyway." The ramp lowered. Wind rushed in. She walked forward, not limping anymore, not hiding behind titles or trauma. Just Aeris. Alive. Defiant. Reborn. As she stepped onto the landing platform, a silence fell over the gathered officials. Some stared in disbelief. Others in awe. One even bowed. She didn't wait for permission to speak. "My name is Aeris, daughter of a fallen emperor, survivor of betrayal, and voice of a rebellion that was nearly erased." Her voice was clear. Strong. "You all want a new future for this galaxy. Well, here I am. The past tried to bury me. But I'm still standing. And I will not let any empire, old or new, replace tyranny with more chains." One of the generals nodded slowly. "The people still whisper your name, you know. The girl who defied her own blood." "I'm not a symbol," she said. "I'm a soldier. A leader. But most importantly, I'm someone who believes we don't need empires. We need unity. We need justice. And that starts today." Dax stepped beside her, armor scratched and stained, but face calm. He didn't need to say anything. His presence alone spoke volumes. The Alliance declared an immediate ceasefire across contested sectors. The orbital prism array was dismantled under Aeris's supervision. Refugees and dissenters were offered protection. And in a historic vote, Aeris was named Chief Diplomatic Commander, not a throne, but a mission. She declined a crown. She chose a uniform. Weeks passed. Then months. A new council formed, built of species from across the quadrant. Silora's moons, once prison colonies, became education hubs. Former enemies trained side by side in peacekeeping corps. The war didn't vanish, but it slowed, crumbled. Change, real change, had begun. One quiet evening, in the gardens of the Central Alliance city, Aeris found Dax sitting on a stone bench, watching kids play with floating drones. "Still guarding me," she teased. He shrugged. "Old habits." She sat beside him. "Do you ever think about it? The canyon. The fire. That moment we thought we wouldn't make it. All the time." She turned to him. "If you hadn't come, I wouldn't be here. If you hadn't fought, I wouldn't have followed." They sat in silence. Then she reached into her pocket and handed him something small. The original distress beacon, the one he'd answered. "You kept it," he said. "It's proof," she said, "that someone gave a damn." He held it for a long moment, then smiled. "You know, I think the galaxy might just make it after all." She stood. One fight at a time. As she walked away, Dax watched the fading light reflect off her silhouette, no longer a rebel or an exile, but a new kind of royalty. One the galaxy had never seen before. *** moral. Sometimes, the people the world discards are the ones who save it. And sometimes, the greatest rebellion isn't in weapons or war, but in choosing hope, compassion, and the courage to stand when others stay silent. ***.